institute.
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. Police say the gunman in the Bondi Beach attack threw 4 undetonated explosives, including a tennis ball bomb at the start of the assault on a Jewish festival. Naveed Akram is charged with 15 counts of murder, while his father Sajid Akram is killed by police, with documents saying the pair recorded an Islamic State-inspired manifesto. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese apologises to the Jewish community after the deadly Bondi Beach attack. He says his government will do more to protect Jewish Australians and combat anti-Semitism. A Russian lieutenant general is killed after a bomb planted under a car explodes in Moscow, according to investigators. Authorities say Fanil Servatov, a senior military training official, dies at the scene and are probing possible Ukrainian involvement. US and Ukrainian envoys say talks in Miami are productive and constructive but yield no major breakthrough on ending the war with Russia. The meetings focus on aligning positions on a proposed peace plan and security guarantees as separate US-Russia talks continue. The United States is in active pursuit of a third oil tanker near Venezuela after seizing 2 vessels this month, officials have said. Washington says the ship is part of Venezuela's sanctioned dark fleet as Caracas condemns the seizures as illegal. Southeast Asian foreign ministers meet in Malaysia to try to restore a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia after weeks of deadly fighting. The clashes have killed at least 60 people and displaced more than 500,000, shattering a previous truce brokered by ASEAN and the United States. A regional assembly in Niigata votes to allow the restart of the Kishiwaki Karuaka plant, the world's largest nuclear facility. The move marks a key step in Japan's return to nuclear power nearly 15 years after the Fukushima disaster. China lodges a diplomatic complaint with Japan over a senior ruling party official's visit to Taiwan, calling it a serious mistake. The move comes as Taiwan and Japan signal closer cooperation, further straining already tense Beijing-Tokyo relations. We start with ongoing tensions between China and Japan, and Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Juan has urged Japan to cease what China calls provocative actions on nuclear weapons. The comment came after local Japanese media earlier reported that a senior security official suggested the country should acquire nuclear weapons to deter potential aggressors. Meanwhile, later, Japan reaffirmed its decades-old pledge never to possess nuclear weapons. Relations between Tokyo and Beijing have soured since Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi said a Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger a military response last month. Let's in fact listen in to what the spokesperson has said.
近年来，右翼势力不断推动日本扩武强军。日本首相官邸高官的拥核表态，再次暴露出这股势力正在推动日本再军事化。 在武装化，这一事态再次表明，日本首相高市11月7日涉台的错误危险言论，绝非偶然，强烈敦促日方恪守国际法和自身宪法，停止在拥核问题上的试探、挑衅，不要妄图挑战战后国际秩序，不要在错误的道路上继续狂奔。
Joining us now is Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute and he joins us live from the Japanese capital of Tokyo to discuss this in further detail. Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. This saga between Tokyo and Beijing continues with aggravated statements, particularly coming out of Beijing since Sanai Takaichi made these comments. And China is, of course, urging and warning Japan to stop what it calls provocative actions on nuclear weapons. But Japan says its non-nuclear principles remain unchanged. Is Beijing overreacting here, or is it trying to shut down a debate before it gains any traction in Japan?
Of course, this is China's provocation, not Japan's provocation, because this remark about the nuclear weapon is just talking privately. So Japan is a democratic country. Each individual has the freedom of expression. China do not have the right to restrict such kind of remark. So if China say this is provocative against China, Chinese government fighting against just private Japanese. How tiny the Chinese government is. So that is strange. China tried to exploit this situation to provoke Japan. Not Japan. Japan did not provoke China. That is my analysis. Thank you.
And Dr. Nagao, of course, this stems from Sanai Takaichi's comments around a month ago now, where she said that any military action made by China on Taiwan, which of course Beijing sees as its own, could provoke a military response from Tokyo. Does Takaichi's stance there remain unchanged?
Not changed because this is natural. Japan is located only 100 kilometers from Taiwan. So if China invade Taiwan, this means that just in front of Japan, a serious crime has started. Under such kind of situation, if Japan ignores such kind of situation, this is Japan's joining the side of China, and we cannot do that. So this is the situation in front of you. The crime has happened. You need to react. That is the situation. So that's why Prime Minister Takaichi's remark is just natural and logical. Why Japan need to withdraw this remark? This is natural and logical, and we cannot escape such kind of fact.
Yes, and now, Dr. Nagao, we did see the two shaking hands, which we're showing right now, prior to these comments that were made about a week prior in South Korea, showing that Xi and Sanai can show close relations, at least in front of cameras. What would cause de-escalation here? What do the Chinese want from this situation, and what do the Japanese want?
I think in the South Korea, the Prime Minister Takaichi has already met the President Xi Jinping. That time, President Xi Jinping understands that there is a possibility that Prime Minister Takaichi will continue as a Prime Minister relatively long time. In this case, China wants to know what kind of person she is. No, not just one meeting is not enough, so they want to know, they want to collect the data, or they want to know especially weak point of her. So that's why by exploiting this situation, China is testing her government. For example, by provoking militarily, economically, one by one they are trying to do, and checking the reaction and other data. Because in the future, it will be useful. So that's why they are exploiting this situation. But Japan did not provoke China. Only China provoked Japan.
Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us and bringing your insight to that topic. Of course, we'll continue to explore that as soon as it develops. We move over to Europe next and over to the Eastern Front. And a senior Russian general has been killed in a car bomb explosion in southern Moscow, marking the latest targeted assassination since the start of the Ukraine war. Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvatov, head of the Russian General Staff's Training Detectorate, was killed when an explosive device detonated under his vehicle. Similar attacks have happened earlier as well, targeting senior generals, military officers and pro-war figures since the war broke out in 2022. Many of the killings involved car bombs or shootings, underscoring a continuing pattern of targeted assassinations. Images released by the investigative committee show the vehicle badly damaged as investigators examined the scene. A murder probe has been opened, with authorities saying possible links to Ukrainian special services are being examined. Let's listen in to what the Russian investigation committee has to say on the incident.
Следственным комитетом России возбуждено уголовное дело об убийстве в связи с подрывом автомобиля на улице Ясеневой в Москве, в результате которого погиб начальник управления оперативной подготовки Генерального штаба Вооруженных сил Российской Федерации генерал-лейтенант Фанил Сарвар.
Professor Veselin Popovsky joins us now, a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, live from New Delhi. Professor Popovsky, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Of course, this is another assassination that has occurred on Russian turf. Of course, Ukraine have not claimed this attack. However, we have had no statement from them in general in regards to this, and Russia are accusing. This is another senior general that's been killed inside Moscow, much like the likes of Kirillov and around 7 or 8 others killed by explosions, shooting and the like. What does this say about the state of Russia's internal security more than 3 years into this war?
Well, what does it say? Russians don't care about their own general. That's what does it say. And Ukrainians have absolute right to kill every single Russian general. Can expect this to happen any week, any day, any hour, day and night. Then that's what the war is about. The war is about killing the military of the enemy. That's what the war is about. Russia started the war. Russia committed numerous war crimes in Ukraine. So every Russian general can expect the same what happened to Sarvarov today. Absolutely nothing wrong. This is what international humanitarian law is about. Well done, Ukrainians. They should plan and execute the next one. This is what the war is about. Killing moreover the generals, not only the soldiers, but every general who takes decisions in wartime should be a target of such assassinations. Absolutely normal in wartime. Moreover, the war started by Russia, and this general himself, his hands are full of blood of civilian Ukrainians. What Russia does is illegal, invading another country and killing deliberately its civilians. What Ukrainians are doing are defending their country, and if they kill a Russian general, no matter where he is, he could be anywhere in the world, day and night, they are military targets, they must be killed. This is what the law of armed conflict is about. More, better.
And Professor Popovsky, can you tell us a bit more about Lieutenant General Saratov, and what do you expect, if you do expect, a Russian retaliation to this?
Well, let's see. Well, not much. Well, they can cut the electricity in Kiev again with some drones. That's what the response could be. There is not much left for Russia to do here. They are stuck on the battlefield. They cannot advance anymore. They lost 1 million soldiers since the war started. Half of their weapons are destroyed, and tanks and military armors, and all Russia can expect is more misery, economic including, for every single Russian citizen. And that's actually, sorry to say, but Russian civilians will also suffer from this war because their state of economy is miserable after the war started. Unfortunately, the leadership and Vladimir Putin, with all their billions in their account, they are probably safe. But that's what the war is about. Russia started it, Russia will bear the consequences of it.
Professor Popovsky, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. We now move over to the Caribbean for our next story. And Venezuela says that a Chevron chartered tanker carrying Venezuelan heavy crude oil had departed for the United States despite strained relations between the two countries. In fact, an unverified video on Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez's social media account showed a man standing next to the Canopus Voyage tanker owned by the Chevron company, noting that 500,000 barrels of special Jamaica blend are bound for Texas, the United States, in compliance with international agreements. The United States Treasury Department granted Chevron a new license in late July, allowing it to operate in the sanctioned South American country and export its oil, a policy shift from more strict rules the Trump administration had imposed earlier this year. Chevron exported some 252,000 barrels per day of Venezuelan oil to the US in the first quarter, about 29% of the OPEC country's total. Let's take a look at the video that's been posted.
Buenas tardes. Zarpando el buquetanque Canoco Follaje, perteneciente a la empresa Chevron, con 500,000 barriles de Special Hamaca Blend, con destino Freeport, Texas, Estados Unidos, cumpliendo con los convenios internacionales y sobre todo con los convenios establecidos por la empresa Chevron. El Estado venezolano cumple de esta manera.
Andrew Latham joins us now. He's an international affairs expert. He joins us live from Minneapolis in the United States. Andrew, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme. There are a lot of names coming at us there. However, what we do know is that the Trump administration has put a blockade on Venezuela and its oil. However, Venezuela's vice president there saying that this is legal. Andrew, would you mind explaining to us in simpler terms what is going on here?
Sure. Well, for several years now, certainly predating the current Trump administration, the U.S. has had a sanctions regime in place against Venezuela, intended not to bring the government down or lay the predicate for a ground invasion, but to moderate and modulate its foreign policy, and especially its relations with China and Russia and Iran. So it's a sort of multifaceted way of applying pressure to the Maduro regime to get it to change its ways, to mend its policies, as it were. And those sanctions are wide-ranging, but they involve sanctioning the exports of Venezuelan oil, which is the primary source of revenue for the Maduro government. Not all oil is blockaded or sanctioned. The United States has licensed some firms, like Chevron, for example, to export a limited amount of crude for humanitarian purposes. Some would argue to suit America's need for oil itself. But Venezuela has reacted by creating a sanctions evasion fleet designed to find ways to export its oil and make money on the world market by evading the American sanctions regime and its enforcement operations in the Caribbean. China, of course, thinks this is illegal, and this is a source of friction between Beijing and Washington. So it's not just about Venezuela, not just about U.S.-Venezuela relations, but it has broader geopolitical and legal ramifications as well.
Andrew, Venezuela says this shipment complies with international agreements. What are these agreements exactly, and are they transparent enough to withstand the scrutiny? Of course, as well, this comes as the United States has announced that it is going after a third oil tanker in Venezuela's dark fleet. What more can you tell us, Andrew?
Well, it's a legal gray zone. In a sense, the United States has an interpretation of the international legal regime and, of course, its domestic laws as well. And under President Trump, the interpretation is that the United States has the legal right to intercept any sanctioned vessel, and that's what it's doing. Now it has ramped up enforcement of that, but the legal principle that underpins these operations is in Washington's mind, been there for a long time. Beijing and Caracas, of course, see things very differently. They see these as simply American imperial overreach, as it were. The United States operating, as they say it often does, beyond the bounds of international law to suit its own purposes and advance and defend its own interests. And so are beginning to push back. Beijing in particular is beginning to push back more and more on this. And there is no court really that's in a position at the moment to adjudicate this dispute. So the United States will continue doing what it's doing under cover, it thinks, of international and domestic law. And Venezuela and China and others will continue to say, no, this is illegal under international law. And at this moment, might makes right.
Andrew, do stay with us as we have further updates, but this time coming out of the United States. And according to reports, the US State Department's independent watchdog is reviewing a request from 2 Democratic senators to investigate whether the Trump administration's officials violated ethics rules over deals involving the United Arab Emirates. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Elissa Slotkin have asked for the Inspector General to examine the role of US President Donald Trump's aides Steve Witkoff and David Sachs in approving the export of advanced US-made chips to the UAE. The lawmakers raised concerns over the officials' reported financial ties to Abu Dhabi in the cryptocurrency sector. Warren says Congress is owed a full investigation, while Slotkin is calling for any findings to be made public. Meanwhile, the White House maintains the officials followed ethics rules. Andrew, Steve Witkoff and David Sachs are central figures here. What ethics safeguards are supposed to be? What ethics safeguards are supposed to fire when officials have business interests in the countries they're making policy about? Of course, you can relate this to the likes of Jared Kushner as well in Saudi Arabia, and there's plenty more examples. What more can you tell us, Andrew?
Meant to be acting in the United States' national interest, not in their own personal pecuniary or monetary interests. And many players on that diplomatic stage will distance themselves, distance their personal monetary interests from the national interest by putting accounts, relieving themselves of control of their accounts, let's put it that way. Doing everything they can to create the reality and the impression that they are not engaging in foreign policy in ways that would benefit them personally in a financial sense, but they are merely doing things in the United States' best national interests as they and the administration understand it. This is an internal investigation. It's not a legal proceeding. It's the Inspector General is going to take a close look at this and decide whether there is merit to the claim on the part of these 2 very partisan Democratic senators. If there's any merit to this, then perhaps it will be ramped up to a legal proceeding. But for right now, it's merely an internal investigation designed to see if there's any grounds for taking this to the next level.
Andrew Latham, as always, it is a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. We now move on and over to Europe. And Denmark has drilled oil once in the North Sea and imported European carbon dioxide, which will soon be buried under the seabed in a carbon capture and storage project near its completion. CCS technology is one of the tools approved by the United Nations Intergoverning Mental Panel on climate change and the International Energy Agency to curb global warming, especially for reducing carbon dioxide of industries like cement and steel that are difficult to decarbonize. Meanwhile, some people have responded. Let's take a listen in to what they have to say.
A facility out here in the North Sea, and this is ending the end of the life. So we've been producing oil and gas for many years, and now it was coming to an end. So we thought, what can we use the facilities for? And we found a really good opportunity for reversing. Instead of taking the oil up, we can actually now inject the CO2 down.
As an offshore worker here, we are pretty excited about this. First of all, we're going to be part of the green transition. We're going to be using these assets we already have, so we are using the same infrastructure that's been built up here for decades. We're going to have the same type of job, same time of way of doing things out here, and actually having a future here for these maturing fields.
The reason why the North Sea is seen as a vault for CO2 storage is because of the enormous amounts of data that we have collected through over 50 years of production from petroleum. We have that experience from offshore production, and we have enormous aquifers, water filled rocks down below that can hold very big amounts of CO2.
Well, in Norway, we've had the experience of a sort of very intense carbon capture debate over the last more than 25 years, where the CCS possibility has been used as an excuse to continue massive reliance on fossil fuels, and it has delivered.
Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.